Hi, my name is Greg, and I work with Revolution Prep. Welcome, Santa Monica. I wanted to thank Dr. Sterner for allowing me to be here tonight and talk to you guys. I'm going to be talking a little bit about the PSAT, how it fits into the college application process, and giving you guys a good breakdown of what's to expect coming up with college application and that sort of thing. So again, let me just introduce myself. My name is Greg Ewert. I grew up in San Francisco, California. I came down to here in Los Angeles because I went to Loyola Marymount University. And I'm still here because I love the beach and love the weather. So I'm enjoying a lot down here and just want to talk a little bit about the PSAT test. Also, I've been doing test prep for over a year now, so I have a really good understanding of what these tests do and how they fit in with that application process and all the different tests. We're going to go over everything tonight. It's going to be a lot of fun. Okay, so let's look at this first slide. This is what we're going to be covering tonight. I'm going to be breaking down, as I said before, the PSAT, but first, why does testing matter? In terms of standardized testing, whether or not it's a good or bad thing with school and application, is a discussion of itself, but we do know that it's very important when it comes to the application process, so it's something we all basically have to deal with. I'm going to be going over how to interpret your PSAT results, which you guys all took as well. Also, from the PSAT to that transition to the ACT, we're going to be going over that as well, along with the SAT transition. I'll be explaining all of that. And then we're going to wrap it up with next steps, subject test testing, and then what we can do to get you guys ready for these particular tests. Okay? So let's get right into it. The first slide, as you can see here, why does testing matter? We all wish it didn't, but it does. So look at these two diagrams. The first one is big input and then small input. Question for everyone. What is the main thing colleges care about? Anyone? Troy? Yes, that's correct. So the main thing that colleges care about are your grades. And it's not only just your grades. It's going to be your grades and then also what sort of classes you're taking as well. So the rigor of your academic schedule, basically. That's the main thing that colleges care about, and that's going to be about 50% of your application process. And how many hours how many hours a week do you think you spend on your grades? That's about right. So actually, over the course of your high school career, you're going to spend 8,000 hours on your grades, which is a lot. So, I mean, it is the most important part, and that's what you're going to be doing the most. Going to school, homework, projects, all of that adds up to about 8,000 hours, right? So what is another thing, besides standardized testing, that colleges look for in the application process? Anyone? That's correct. So it's activities, kind of your extracurricular activities. Who here has an activity outside of school? Raise your hand. I mean, that's just about everyone, right? So activities are a huge part of the application process. It's not as much as grades, but it's going to be about 25% of the application process is what sort of extracurriculars, whether it's sports, whether it's drama, clubs, what do you do, what sort of activities? Okay, works on a play, all those sorts of things you're going to be putting in your application process, and as I'm sure you guys spend a lot of time outside of school, doing these sorts of things, and actually, people spend on average 1,000 hours outside of school working on extracurricular activities. So we have 8,000 and then 1,000, about 9,000 hours on 75% of your college application process. Now let's talk about the last 25% is SAT, ACT, college admission tests. So who here thinks they know the average amount of time people spend preparing for an SAT test? What do you guys think? Actually, it's close to 10 hours. So, I mean, what is 10 hours? It's a couple practice tests is what most people do in order to prepare. And this doesn't really make a lot of sense if you think about it. You're spending 8,000 hours on your GPA. You're spending 1,000 hours on your extracurricular activities, and then 10 hours on your SAT test. And the thing about the SAT is that, and the ACT, is these tests are very specific. They're designed in a specific way by specific people who are looking to garner a certain result from the students. So if you're going into these tests not prepared, it's going to look a lot different, or just 10 hours, it's going to look a lot different than the sort of time you put into your GPA and your extracurriculars. You're just not putting into it, or most people aren't putting into the same, with their testing. And we're not saying spend 1,000 hours on your testing, not at all. But it is 25% of your application process, and the difference between 10 hours and 40 to 50 hours is significant. And if you do prep for that and get that sort of readiness for those tests, it's going to make a big difference and a big impact on that 25%. And the nice thing about the SAT is it doesn't take a lot of time to get ready for it. So, and as you look at these diagrams, it's kind of explaining what I'm talking about. So that big output, you see the transcript, the standardized testing, other, so that's what you're putting into it, right? 50% for the transcript, and then about 25% for standardized testing, and then extracurriculars. And then, but then the input, look at all that for the transcript and your GPA, versus your extracurriculars, and then standardized testing is a little slower. So it just gives you guys an idea, and in the big picture, a lot of people just kind of miss this point, but when you look at it like this, it starts to make a little bit more sense of why people get prepared, and the high advantage people do have when they do that. So let's move on to the next slide. So what is the PSAT? The PSAT is basically a shortened version of the SAT. It's very similar. It's written by the same people as the SAT test, and it's going to be just a practice version, a shorter version, basically. For sophomores, this is a good first exposure to standardized testing. It's probably the first major test you've done like this. For juniors, really similar. Also, you're eligible for National Merit Scholar. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but that's another aspect of the PSAT test. And overall, it just gives you a good idea of where you stand. Obviously, the PSAT is not a direct translation to an SAT and an ACT, but it'll give you a good general idea, and you kind of know where you stand on standardized testing as well. So let's look at this breakdown of the PSAT chart. As you can see, it's 2 hours and 10 minutes, which is long. I understand it only gets worse from here. I'm sorry. But you can see the breakdown: math, writing, critical reading, more math, and some more critical reading as well. That's a general breakdown of the PSAT. And it's pretty long. What do you guys think of length of the test? Long, right? Oh yeah, you guys are just getting started. So let's get to the fun part, section scores. Bring up your test, guys. Look at this slide. It's going to look really similar to what everyone has. I'll give you guys a sec, what everyone has in their hands. So if you take a look at the slide, these are your breakdowns. So you have critical reading, you have math, you have writing skills. Those are the three major sections of the PSAT. You're going to see the score that you have, this sample score. Got a 50 in critical reading, that bubble. Got a 50 in critical reading, a 52 in mathematics, and a 44 in writing skills. Does everyone see that? Okay. So each section is going to be from out of 80 points. So you can get all the way up to 80 points on these particular sections. And then all of it is going to be out of 240 points overall. So that'll be your overall score, would be out of 240 points. So if you look at this, also under these bubbles, take a look at your own scores, but under the bubbles, it's going to give you a percentage, or kind of a base range of, if you took the test again without preparation, what you would probably get, somewhere in between that range. And then under that, you see the little people, it'll show you how you did compared to everyone else. So it gives you a good idea in terms of your percentage compared to how everyone else is taking the test as well. So take a look at that for a little bit. And there's also a lot more on here. We're going to be going over more of the score report, but for the first part, this is your general breakdown, how you're doing on the sections, and how it relates to everyone else, pretty much. So, everyone ready? So let's go to the next slide. This is your total score. Again, this is everything added up, so that previous slide was the different sections. This is all added up, so our sample student got a 146, which is in the 47th percentile. So 146 is in the 47th percentile, and this is actually your PSAT score for your particular state. This is how you do compared to everyone else in California, is a 47%. Also, how this compares to the SAT is a very common question. Since it is designed by the same people, it's pretty comparable. So if you did just add a 0, so this person on an SAT would generally get a 1460. Now, the SAT is a longer test, there's more to it, there's a few different things as well, so this is not a perfect representation, but generally, this student would expect to get around a 1460 on the official SAT exam. So let's take a look at the next slide. This is going to be a further breakdown of the skills. It's called the skills breakdown on the PSAT test. So if you look at here, it's going to just be more in depth. So this is really going to show you your strengths and weaknesses in terms of where you're scoring on the different sections. So let's say our previous person, right, got a 44 on the writing skills. It's not just let's go in and fix the writing skills, right? We want to know where in the writing you're doing better. Or for example, let's take the reading, right? Let's say you got a 40 on the reading and did really well on everything else. Now you're going to want to look at this as not so much let's just boost up that reading score, but let's see where exactly it is. So for example, let's say you're doing well at the reading and inference. You see up here the reading and inference section is doing well, but where you're struggling is your organization and ideas. So this is a really good tool to help you further narrow in where you need to focus your preparation on. So definitely take a good look at that. Let's go to the next slide. So this is the official question by question. Everything that's related here is what you actually did on the test. So that first column is the question number. The second column is going to be your answer. Actually, the second column is the correct answer, and then the third column is what you put down. Hopefully it was the correct answer as well. And then the fourth column is the difficulty level of the question. So you can look exactly, also I hope you guys all kept your tests, but you can go back, look at the questions, see exactly what you put down, what the correct answer was, and then you'll get a better idea of what sorts of questions you're doing better or worse on. And then also, what's really cool, I think, personally, is that difficulty level question. So, if you're getting all your easies and mediums right, but then are struggling with the hards, you know where to focus in on. And if it's all over the place, then maybe you need to slow down. Maybe there's other things at play, or maybe you're doing really well in one section with easies and mediums, but another one it's all over the place. You understand that particular section. Slow down, take it easy. If you're missing a bunch of easies as well, that might mean that you need to basically slow down. Just keep going at a consistent pace. So this is your question by question breakdown. This will be something good to look at home. But let's look at the next slide. So going from the PSAT to the SAT. Now the SAT is the kicker. This is what's going to count on your college application. Again, the PSAT is just practice, but this SAT test is what's going to really count and actually matter when we do all of our application processes. So 95% of the SAT is the same sort of content, but there are three main differences. The SAT is slightly harder, especially in the math section. You're going to find a little bit more, some algebra 2 in there, concepts that weren't really in the PSAT. Also, the SAT has a 25-minute essay right out the bat. The first thing you do is you're going to sit down and take an essay. Now, we can help you out with that. It's interesting to have a specific idea of what sort of essay you're looking for, but basically that very first thing you do, take an essay, and then you get right into the rest of the test. So it's a fun way to start it, right? And then the SAT is much, much longer, and I would say this is the biggest difference, and the part that's going to make the biggest impact on your score is that you could sit there for 4 hours. I took an SAT test the other day just to keep up to date, to understand what all of you guys are going through, and it wasn't that fun, to be honest. But you get through it, and if you know what you're doing, it's not that bad, but 4 hours is a long time. That's your whole Saturday. There goes your beach time. basically. And actually, that's all the time we have. Best presentation ever. And let me stop.